Usually when we think about a system getting hacked, there's this expectation of a visible breach. Like you picture someone smashing a window, or maybe a giant red warning flashing on your computer screen saying, system compromised.
Right. It's overt. Like your defenses are triggered immediately because the threat is basically standing right in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. You know an attack has happened, and you know you need to react. But then you step into the world of human psychology, and suddenly that early warning system is just, it's completely bypassed.
It's invisible.
It is. We are looking at a landscape of manipulation that is totally invisible until it's entirely too late. So welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to understand how our mental operating systems get hacked.
And it happens to everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you're navigating a new relationship with someone charismatic, or working for a visionary startup founder, or honestly, just trying to manage your own stubborn investments, the human brain has these inherent structural vulnerabilities.
It's baked right into our biology.
Right. So we're going to explore the psychology of deception, the actual biology of why you fall for it, and most importantly, how to build an impenetrable mental firewall. Because let's be real, no one thinks they can be manipulated until they are.
No, they don't. And if we look at the architecture of a really sophisticated attack, the most dangerous ones don't look like attacks at all. In cybersecurity, there's this concept called a zero-day exploit.
Okay, what is that exactly?
So this is a hack that targets a vulnerability in the software that is completely unknown to the developer. Because it's unknown, there are 0 days to patch it before the attacker is already inside the system.
Oh, wow. And what's wild is that, based on our source material, manipulators use a psychological version of this. It's a tactic called future faking.
Yes, and it operates exactly like a zero-day exploit because it doesn't target a weakness. It actually targets a strength.
It bypasses your critical thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It hacks into the brain's executive functions.
Right.
Specifically, it targets our natural, completely healthy love for visioning, planning, and goal setting.
So it's using our own optimism against us.
That's the core of the deception. The human brain is naturally wired with an optimism bias. We possess this skewed probability engine that naturally filters out risk when we look ahead towards something we deeply desire. And manipulators exploit this through a very deliberate reconnaissance phase.
Reconnaissance? Like they're gathering intel?
Literally, yes. They use techniques called elicitation and mirroring. Basically, they just get you to talk, they extract your deepest desires, your unfulfilled dreams, and then they reflect them right back to you as this shared destiny.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the mechanics of it are just devious. It's like someone breaking into your house, stealing the blueprints for your absolute dream home, and then walking up to your front door the next day and selling those exact blueprints back to you as a promise, just to keep you on the hook.
That is precisely how it plays out in real time. Like, let's say you casually mention on a first date that your ultimate dream is to one day open a dog rescue sanctuary. You just throw it out there.
Right, just making conversation.
Exactly. But suddenly, this person, who has literally never mentioned animals before, reveals that their lifelong goal has always been to run a coastal animal sanctuary. And then they start sending you Zillow listings for properties with lots of land. They create this highly detailed, fabricated fantasy future based entirely on the data you unknowingly provided.
That is terrifying. And this is where I think people get really confused, because they hear that and think, oh, well, that's love bombing. But there's actually a massive structural difference between the two, isn't there?
There is, and honestly, confusing them actually leaves you vulnerable. Love bombing is about present day, overwhelming affection. It's the constant texting, the grand gestures right now, the flowers sent to your office on a Tuesday.
So it's very immediate.
Very. The goal of love bombing is to rapidly establish present-day dependency and bypass your natural process of, vetting someone and earning trust over time.
Right. So love bombing is the immediate overwhelming of your senses. Future faking is something else entirely. It's like a relational bait and switch.
Exactly. Future faking anchors you to a timeline that just doesn't exist. They sell you the promise of that dog rescue sanctuary or buying a house in Italy or whatever so that you will tolerate a miserable present.
Because you're holding out for the payoff.
Right. When the mask slips and they start treating you terribly, you don't leave because you think, I can't walk away now, we're about to buy the property for the sanctuary.
We have to remember, the manipulator isn't always some mastermind in a dark room, twirling a mustache, plotting your demise. Sometimes this behavior is just a tragic, maladaptive defense mechanism for someone who's terrified of abandonment.
Oh, for sure. They overpromise to secure your attachment.
But the result for you, the target, is exactly the same.
Yeah.
You are living in a state of psychological limbo,
Yep.
holding on to a future that is mathematically never going to arrive.
And here is where we move from the psychological to the physical. Because once this hack is deployed, it triggers a massive cascade of physiological responses. Your body actually physically reacts to this manipulation, which explains why simply walking away feels, well, entirely impossible for the victim.
Right, because if you're on the outside looking in, you just think, wow, that person's in a bad mood, just leave them.
But it's not a bad mood.
No, you are not just dealing with a bad mood. You are being subjected to what's clinically called an intermittent reinforcement schedule. That's basically the slot machine effect. Like if a slot machine paid out a jackpot every single time you pulled the lever, you'd actually get bored and walk away.
Right, there's no thrill.
And if it never paid out at all, you'd just give up. It is the unpredictability, the not knowing if this pull is the one that creates a compulsive obsession.
In a future faking dynamic, the manipulator literally becomes the slot machine, and every interaction pulls the lever, flooding your brain with an unnatural, extreme neurochemical cocktail.
So what's actually happening in your bloodstream?
Let's slow down and look at it. It starts with dopamine.
The craving chemical.
Yes. Dopamine spikes heavily during the initial love bombing and future visioning phase. It's that rush of excitement when your phone buzzes and makes you hyper-focused on the reward. Then comes oxytocin.
That's the bonding hormone, right?
Exactly. It's released during deep conversations, physical touch, shared vulnerability. Oxytocin literally lowers your psychological defenses and creates profound implicit trust. You feel deeply attached to this person.
But then the inevitable happens. The devaluation phase begins.
Yeah. The manipulator pulls back.
The silent treatment starts, or those subtle put-downs, the gaslighting. Suddenly, the person who wanted to build a sanctuary with you is acting like you're an annoyance.
And that withdrawal of affection is interpreted by your brain as a profound physical threat. Your system just floods with cortisol,
The stress hormone.
the stress hormone. I want you to think about how that physically feels. The tight chest, the pit in your stomach, the racing heart, the inability to sleep. You aren't just sad. Your body has entered a literal life or death survival mode because the person you are bonded to is suddenly a source of danger.
It's pure panic.
Total panic. You are desperate for relief. And finally, when the manipulator decides to toss you a crumb when they apologize or suddenly bring up the dog sanctuary again, your brain releases endogenous opioids.
Wait, opioids, like actual painkillers.
Yes, your body's natural painkillers. They flood your system to soothe the massive cortisol spike. It creates a narcotic-like relief. You feel washed with this overwhelming sense of calm and safety.
So you are literally biologically addicted to the relief that only your terrorizer can provide. You're strung out on your own neurochemistry. That is the definition of a trauma bond.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. You become entirely dependent on your captor for emotional regulation because they hold the cure to the very panic they created. Your baseline becomes chaos, and their occasional kindness is the drug that keeps you coming back.
Well, hold on, let me play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
If we are talking about a listener who is highly educated, incredibly rational, driven, maybe they manage a multi-million-dollar budget at work or lead a massive team, shouldn't their logic eventually just override this chemical cocktail?
You would think so.
Right. Shouldn't they be able to look at the slot machine, do the math, and say, okay, this is a bad investment of my time?
It's a natural assumption, but the research reveals something completely counterintuitive. Driven, highly successful people are actually more susceptible to this specific kind of manipulation.
Really? How does that work? You'd think success requires high discernment.
It does, but think about the traits required for high-level success. If you are highly driven, you are neurobiologically primed to push through pain and stress, which is the cortisol, to achieve a distant, difficult reward, the dopamine.
Oh, I see.
Your brain is trained to interpret stress not as a signal to flee, but as a signal to work harder, to problem solve, to fix the obstacle. So when the relationship gets incredibly difficult, the successful person thinks, I just need to communicate better, I just need to try harder, I can fix this.
That makes so much sense.
There is a profound observation in clinical psychology regarding victims of this abuse. It goes, the abuse didn't break her, it exploited the break that was already there.
Oh, wow. It exploded the break that was already there. That is heavy.
It really is.
So if you had a childhood where love had to be earned through achievement or where affection was conditional and unpredictable, That installs the exact wiring a manipulator is looking for. When the chaos starts, it doesn't trigger alarm bells, it triggers a deep subconscious recognition.
Exactly. The steady, reliable, boringly consistent partner feels foreign and unexciting, while the unpredictable manipulator feels like home.
Right. And it strikes me that this neurochemical loop, this zero-day exploit of our desire for a visionary future, it doesn't just happen on a personal level in romantic relationships.
No, not at all.
If you take this exact concept, selling a fabricated future to bypass critical thinking and scale it up to the boardroom, you literally just described the dark side of startup culture.
Oh, absolutely. The whole fake it till you make it culture is structurally built on future faking. In professional environments, future faking speaks directly to the executive brain's love of vision, innovation, and meaningful goals.
Right, because everyone wants to change the world.
Exactly. But unlike fields like medicine, aviation, or law, which have strict, deeply entrenched regulatory oversight, the startup world relies heavily on a founder's internal moral compass. And when that compass is broken, but they have the charisma of a future faker, the results are catastrophic.
Which we've seen so many times. Our sources highlight some crazy examples, like Trevor Milton of Nikola.
Oh, right.
Literally rolling a prototype truck downhill for a promotional video to make it look like it was functional.
Just faking the entire product.
Exactly. Or Robert Bobak at Taversa.
Yeah.
He was installing fake twinkling lights on computer towers to convince people the machines were actively scanning the internet. It's wild. But the ultimate example of this has to be Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes.
Oh, undoubtedly. She didn't just lie about a blood testing machine. She weaponized the zero-day exploit of vision. She bypassed the critical thinking of some of the most formidable minds in the world.
She really did. I mean, consider who she managed to put on her board of directors.
Yeah.
Henry Kissinger and George Shultz. These were heavyweights of global diplomacy and statecraft.
Right. And neither of them were experts in medical technology or blood pathology.
No. But she didn't need them to be. She bypassed their logical vetting processes by future faking their legacy. She painted a picture of a world where no one ever had to say goodbye too soon to a loved one because of a misdiagnosis.
Which is a powerful vision.
Right. If you are an aging statesman, the desire to be part of a world-changing humanitarian medical revolution is a massive vulnerability. She elicited their desire for a meaningful legacy and mirrored it back to them through this little black box.
And once they bought into the future, they were trapped by the mechanics of the deception.
But surely, I mean, if you are a billionaire investor or a seasoned statesman, at some point you see the cracks. Like, the machines aren't working, the data doesn't add up. Why not just pull your funding and walk away?
It has to be more than just the money.
Right. Is there an ego thing happening where admitting you were conned is simply too painful?
You've hit on two massive psychological barriers here: the sunk cost fallacy and cognitive dissonance. The sunk cost fallacy is our deeply irrational tendency to follow through on an endeavor because we've already invested time, money, or effort into it.
Even when it's clearly failing.
Exactly. We fail to realize that those past costs are entirely irrecoverable. Logic dictates we should only make decisions based on present facts and future value.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's the classic scenario. You buy a $100 non-refundable ticket to an outdoor concert. The day of the show, there's a torrential downpour and you feel a terrible flu coming on.
Yeah, you're miserable.
But you go anyway. You stand in the freezing rain and you get sicker, all because you don't want to waste the $100. You are making a choice that guarantees present misery purely to honor an irrecoverable past cost.
It's so irrational, but we all do it.
And on a massive scale, we see this in what economists call the Concorde fallacy.
Yes, the British and French governments poured hundreds of millions into developing the Concorde supersonic jet. Long before the aircraft was ever finished, the financial models made it mathematically obvious that the project would never be profitable.
But they kept going.
They kept going because they had already spent so much taxpayer money, they felt they couldn't stop. They just kept throwing good money after bad.
And when you layer cognitive dissonance on top of that,
Yeah.
that's where the trap completely locks shut. How does dissonance play into this?
Okay, so cognitive dissonance is the intense psychological discomfort we feel when our beliefs contradict our actions. In the case of Theranos, George Shultz's own grandson, Tyler Shultz, worked at the company and explicitly told his grandfather that the technology was a fraud.
Wow, his own grandson.
Yes. But George Shultz doubled down and sided with Elizabeth Holmes over his own grandson. Why? Because the dissonance of admitting that he, a legendary Secretary of State, was completely duped by a 19-year-old college dropout was psychologically agonizing.
It was too much to bear.
Right. High cognitive dissonance actually moderates or increases the sunk cost effect. We desperately want to justify our past actions, so we double down on the bad investment. It's psychologically easier for the ego to just keep believing the fake future than to process the humiliation of the reality.
So whether you are trapped in a toxic romance or backing a fraudulent startup, the architecture of the trap is identical. The manipulator sells you a fabricated future, your biology gets violently addicted to the unpredictable chemical rewards, and your ego absolutely refuses to cut its losses because of the sunk costs and the cognitive dissonance.
That is a truly terrifying combination. You're basically fighting your own brain.
It is a formidable trap.
Yeah.
But recognizing this exact architecture is the first necessary step in dismantling it.
Right. Now that you understand the zero-day exploit, the chemical addiction, and the sunk cost fallacy, it is time to install the security patches.
Absolutely. We need a mental firewall. And to figure out how to build that mental firewall, we actually have to look backward. The best defense against these modern psychological hacks comes from an ancient philosophy, Stoicism.
The Stoics were absolute masters of emotional resilience. They understood human psychology deeply. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote extensively about managing expectations.
What did he suggest?
He advised himself that when he woke up each morning, he should expect to meet people who were fake, arrogant, jealous, and dishonest. He wasn't doing this to be a miserable pessimist. He was installing a mental firewall. If you expect masks to exist in the world, you stop building your inner peace on the naive expectation that everyone operates with your level of integrity.
I think about that incredible quote from him. The best revenge is not to be like the person who hurt you.
Yes.
Because when you realize you've been future faked or manipulated, the immediate visceral reaction is to want to play the game back. You think, fine, the world is cutthroat. I'll become cold, calculating, and manipulative too.
But the Stoics saw that as the ultimate defeat.
Right. If you compromise your own integrity, the manipulator wins. Becoming the thing you hate just spreads the disease.
To prevent that, the Stoics utilized 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These aren't just, abstract ideas. They are specific antivirus software against manipulation.
How do they apply in real time?
Think about applying them to someone trying to future fake you. Wisdom is the discernment to look at the data to see that their actions do not match their grand promises. Justice is the boundary setting. It's realizing you deserve to be treated with consistency and walking away from toxicity.
Courage has to be about facing reality then.
Exactly. Courage is the willingness to face the sunk cost fallacy head on, to look at the wasted years or the lost investment and say, I am cutting my losses today.
And temperance. Temperance is the emotional regulation. It's stopping your thumb from sending that reactionary text message when the cortisol hits. It's sitting in the discomfort of withdrawal without reaching for the endogenous opioid hit that the manipulator provides.
Exactly. Analyzing your decisions through these 4 virtues helps you rapidly determine if you are acting out of a trauma bond or if you are acting in alignment with reality.
That is a phenomenal mental filter.
Right.
But let me ask you a really practical, boots-on-the-ground question for the listener. Like, in real time, on a date or in a pitch meeting, how can you actually tell the difference between someone's genuine excitement and a manipulator deploying a love bombing or future faking exploit?
It's hard to spot.
Because in the moment, someone who is just really enthusiastic about your shared interest feels identical to someone who is mirroring you.
That is the million-dollar question. What's fascinating here is the differentiator. It's a concept called friction tolerance.
Friction tolerance.
Yes. In a healthy dynamic, whether it's a romantic relationship or a business partnership, small conflicts, misalignments, or requests for space are absorbed safely by the system. A healthy partner can handle you having a bad day. If you say, hey, work was brutal, I need to cancel dinner and just decompress alone tonight, a healthy person absorbs that friction. They might be disappointed, but they don't punish you.
Right, they don't fall apart or make you pay for it.
Precisely. But a manipulator has 0 friction tolerance. If you assert a boundary, request space, or ask a probing, critical question about their business metrics, they respond with disproportionate punishment.
I flip out.
They withdraw entirely, they escalate the emotional intensity, they give you the silent treatment, or they somehow make you feel incredibly guilty. Your need for a quiet night suddenly becomes a massive relationship crisis.
Wow.
If any relationship, business, or personal requires you to be perfectly, unquestioningly compliant in order to remain peaceful, you're experiencing control, not connection.
Wow. Friction tolerance. That is such a tangible metric. And if you realize you're in the trap, the clinical patches to get out are intense but completely necessary, right? There's a protocol highlighted in clinical psychology called the Unified Protocol, or UP.
Right, the Unified Protocol.
It specifically targets emotional regulation by forcing you to break down the emotional high of a manipulator's promise versus the cold, hard reality of their behavior. It separates the dopamine from the data.
And practically speaking, breaking a trauma bond requires absolute no contact. You have to understand this biologically. You are treating a literal chemical withdrawal.
It's cold turkey.
It has to be. Every text message you send, every time you peek at their social media, every closure conversation you attempt to have is just a hit of the drug that resets the neurochemical cycle of addiction back to day one.
And for the business side, overcoming that sunk cost fallacy requires what are called decision matrices. You build a framework that forces you to evaluate your choices based purely on future data and future probabilities. You intentionally take your past investments completely out of the equation.
You evaluate the startup or the project as if you were walking into it today for the very first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we pull all of this together, what is the ultimate takeaway? It means that understanding the mechanics of elicitation, recognizing neurochemical manipulation in your own body, and identifying the sunk cost fallacy is how you empower yourself. You stop being a passive participant in your own psychology. You learn to protect your time, your resources, and your peace of mind.
And honestly, the shame of being manipulated doesn't belong to you.
Exactly. I think this is the most important thing we can say today. If you are listening to this and realizing you've fallen for this, if you've stayed too long in a toxic relationship or back to bad venture, you need to know that being tricked is not a failure of your intelligence.
Not at all.
It is a targeted hijacking of your human biology.
Yeah.
Your brain functioned exactly the way it evolved to function. The shame belongs entirely to the manipulator, not to you.
Your optimism, your vision, and your drive are immense strengths. They are the very things that make you successful. They simply need a firewall of discernment so they can't be weaponized against you.
We started this deep dive talking about computer hacks, how a zero-day exploit silently targets the invisible vulnerabilities in a system. We've seen how devastating future faking and chemical manipulation can be when deployed by a single charismatic partner or a rogue, visionary CEO.
Right.
But as you step away from this and navigate the digital world tomorrow, I want you to consider this final thought. We are entering an era of unprecedented technological advancement. What happens when artificial intelligence systems inherently designed to perfectly mirror our desires and mathematically optimize our engagement learns to future fake us at scale? How will we possibly recognize the illusion when the algorithm knows our dreams better than we do?